Okay, let's start this one off with the California Criusin Supervan. Actually, a little secret, these are all going to be Supervans. Supervans, I guess. I almost said Superfans. But these came out in the mid-70s, and they started out as Redlines, and you're going to see plenty of Redlines in here. But this would have been one that was issued after the Redlines were discontinued, because this only came out in a Blackwall. And this has got the nice chrome finish with the little California Criusin thing over it. And the back wheel of this little vehicle with the flames on it is supposed to be the back wheel of the van as well. So that came out kind of nice. Now we have one, same thing, Chrome Blackwalls with just a standard flame job on the side. And this van came in so many different variations. In fact, they're still making this casting today, but it just doesn't have the same wheels on it. Some of these had metal bases, like this one has a metal base. Some had chrome plastic bases. Some had black plastic bases. And of course, they had different weights corresponding to what they were made out of. But these were actually heavy little cars with the metal base in the metal body. And some of these actually had, now you see, can't hardly tell, but this is a different van. This is the same one with Redlines in a black plastic base. And this also has the smoke tinted windows, so you can't see through the windshield. But the windows never extended around to the side, so they still put the front seats in them to show off the interior. But this one has the same, I guess, windshield as the base, so they just extended up there. And of course, you all had the little sunroof, and they all had a little, I guess that was supposed to be a pop-up sunroof in the back over the passenger area. And now we've got the same one, sort of, only it actually says Supervan on the side. This one came out a little later too. This was probably late 70s, early 80s. Most of these are going to be mid 70s, but I have a few from the later years in this episode. There's also several versions of this van that I just haven't been able to pick up yet. There's one that has a radio station on the side. Some radio station out west too. I forget what the call letters were, but it begins with a K. Those are fairly rare. Those were an exclusive thing. There we go with the white Supervan, Blackwalls, chrome base. Those had, there was a Toys R Us one that had Jeffrey on the side, and that one is really, really rare. And I get most of my collection from buying other collections. Very rarely do I buy a single Hot Wheel, and I just haven't found any of the rare Supervans in any collections that I've bought. I think they've all been snatched up, or there may be a few out there left, but they're really hard to come by unless you just buy them, as an individual thing. Another thing you got to watch out for is, for example, this van right here, this black one with the Blackwall and the flames. This van in poor condition you can pick up for $1 or $2. You can get them at the flea market for $0.25 sometimes. And what people will do, sometimes honestly and sometimes dishonestly, is they'll take a van like this apart. They'll repaint it the color of the expensive ones, the ones with the call letters on the side of the radio station, or the Jeffrey, the Toys R Us van. And here we go, same one with Redlines. And they'll buy the decals for the side, and they'll treat the decals with a chemical that almost makes them look like the tampos, which again is the process by which they put the, for example on this one, the flames on originally. And if they're being honest, they'll sell it as a moderated, modified, or restored, and they'll still get $100 for it. If they're being dishonest, they'll try to pass it off as an original and try to pick up several thousand. So this is where we ask you to subscribe if you like the content, hit the little bell for notifications, and at least maybe leave me a thumbs up on the video. We appreciate the support. This one never came in a Redline. This is actually their shot at the A-Team van with the red stripe going down the side. And it was one of my favorite ones because I see this and I think of Mr. T and just, I pity the fool, that kind of thing. I didn't really get to catch a lot of the A-Team when I was a kid, and I haven't watched a whole lot of it, but what I remember seeing of it is, I guess as an adult it was sort of cheesy, but, as a kid, it was kind of entertaining, kind of like the Dukes of Hazzard. This one, the Khaki cooler, I think this is called the Khaki, well, this is the military police van. And this one came in Redlines and Blackwall. And these also came in a set. And you got the van, the half-track, the tank, and there was also a Oldsmobile 442 military police car. And that one, I think, only came in the set. These other ones, like this one, you could pick up in a blister pack. But the military police 442 police car is worth a lot of money, especially in this condition. If you can find one of those in this condition, you're probably by now talking $1,000. And the Blackwall, it's one of the very few times that the Blackwall version of that car is, according to the books, worth more than the Redline version. And that might be just because they produce more of the Redlines and fewer of the Blackwalls. But if you can find that car in either Blackwall or Redline, in any condition, it's worth money. But again, it's the same thing. That was such a common car with other paint schemes that people are somewhat dishonestly taking them apart and making them look like the more expensive versions, and sometimes selling them in an honest fashion, and sometimes trying to scam people. So we also have in the same thing the Paramedic van. This happens to be white with red lines and a metal base, but they also came in, and you'll see later, Blackwall, because they continued it past the time at which they discontinued the red lines. And these are also in yellow, which is what you're going to see here. There we go. There's the yellow one in Blackwall. And you'll probably notice that the Blackwalls are, well, they're newer for one thing by a few years. That the Blackwalls are in a little bit better shape, and that's because they're a little bit easier to find, especially when I found these. All the vans you see in this, or most of the vans you see in this episode, are going to be something I picked up in the late 2000s. The very last one in this episode is actually my childhood one, but we'll get into that later. And then there was one that I picked up a little later. But there's the Redline version of the same thing. And again, they discontinued the Redlines because of the I think it was just the cost of production. They figured they'd ran their course and they were going to try something else. So they just took the red stripe off the wheels and started calling them Blackwall. They were identical in every other way for a few years after they discontinued them in 1977. But this Paramedic's one of my favorite ones. I still have to get the white Paramedic van with the red lines, so I'll pick that up somewhere in some collection that I buy at some point in the future, and I'll be glad I did. So now we have the Thoravan. This would have come out a little later. It says 1978 on the side there. But this was part of a series where they did the superheroes. Spider-Man got a car. Captain America got the GMC RV motorhome. And in the Captain America version, you actually look in the back and see a scene. It was called a Scene Machines. So there was a whole series of these, and Thor just happened to get the Supervan, and that's why it's in this episode. Maybe one day I'll do an episode of just the superhero comic ones. Now this is the one. This is probably the most, I guess, expensive and desirable one in my collection. This is the one I bought this in a collection about 5 years ago, maybe. And it was one of those deals where a buddy of mine calls me up and says, "Hey, my buddy came in and he's got all these toy cars." He says, "I heard you were interested in these things. You want to come take a look at them?" I said, "Sure." And he sent me a bunch of pictures of them, and of course I was drooling on my keyboard. But when you buy these things, you try not to be too excited about them because you never know whether or not you're actually going to get them. So I went and got this, and this was the kind of the star of that show. This is a Plum Motocross van, and you'll notice by looking at it, it's already spun around, but you'll notice that it has a different scene on each side. Now this one, this was my childhood one. This is the one that I had as a kid. This is what Khaki did to his toys. This one actually survived, believe it or not. And it was one of my favorite toys as a kid, and all that scratching and wear and paint off the tampos, or tampos off the paint, I guess I should say, is just me carrying that around in my hot little hand and enjoying owning it, running it down the racetrack. And this one, believe it or not, is in a display case in my office, and it's displayed with my other childhood Redlines, which I will eventually show all of you. And I appreciate you watching, and that's it for this episode. Come back next week for the next one.